The Israeli Prime Minister remains defiant as he addresses the country following his indictment.
You have to be blind not to see that something bad is happening with the police and the prosecutors. Tonight we're witnessing an attempted coup with false allegations and a tainted investigation.
That investigation lasted years. On Thursday, Israel's Attorney General announced his decision to formally press charges.
A day when the Attorney General decides to indict an acting Prime Minister for severe charges of corruption is a difficult and sad day for the Israeli public and for me personally.
The cases against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu are known as Case 1000. Netanyahu and his family are suspected of receiving gifts from business colleagues and close friends. Case 2000 covers allegations that Netanyahu attempted to influence the publisher of a daily newspaper to gain more positive coverage. The recommended charges in both cases, fraud and breach of trust. And Case 4000, allegations of regulatory favors for Israel's largest telecommunications company in exchange for positive media coverage. The charges here: fraud, breach of trust and bribery. Netanyahu has rejected all the accusations and says he will continue to lead the country. His immunity as Prime Minister means he won't be legally forced to resign. But his political future hangs by a thread. He has failed to form a government after 2 consecutive elections, and he now faces a legal process that could drag on for years.
Joining us now here in the studio is DW's Mideast analyst Shani Rouzanis. Good morning to you, Shani. Nice to see you again.
Good morning. Yeah.
Benjamin Netanyahu, he's the longest-serving prime minister in Israel. Can he manage to survive this politically?
Well, I know better than to say these are his last days. Too many commentators have fallen into that trap in the last years when things seem to be getting dire and dire. It is, however, this time serious more than ever. And we have seen, even before the indictment charges were brought, we saw yesterday morning already people from his own party challenging him, calling for primaries, calling for elections for the leadership of the Likud, because he was not contested since 2014. So if we see his own base starting to rise against him, and we've seen also in the second elections there's erosion mostly of the right, not of the left. If we're going for a third round of elections, we might see Netanyahu, Likud, the right bloc, be the one suffering the most.
Okay, now, we heard on a report that he could survive this politically for a number of years. Is that really possible?
Well, what he's trying to do, it was clear yesterday in his speech, he is starting his campaign, and his line is quite clear. This is an illegal, illegitimate attempt of the lefty elite to bring down the right. And me, as a sitting prime minister, it can work. It can resonate with his audience especially. And we need to remember his coalition, he has a mini coalition with some other parties in the parliament who are supporting the bloc, the 55 bloc. 2 of the leaders of the parties connected to that bloc, theirs themselves are facing charges. So they don't have a particular interest in being kind to the police. This line of campaign serves them very well.
So Benjamin Netanyahu could remain potentially in office as a result of all this?
Officially, he does stay for at least...
For at least 3 weeks?
Well, at least 3 weeks, unless if we see a major political earthshake, it should probably ensue in the next week. Otherwise, we will probably see him for the next couple of months until the 3rd term of election is coming, which will be probably early March, 3rd of March. And he can definitely stay in office until then, if nothing happens next...
Into the spring. All right. Now, opposition leader Benny Gantz is saying there's no way he could stay in office, you know, pointing out that any decisions of state he makes could be for personal reasons.
Yes.
Is that going to play out in the new election campaign you mentioned?
Of course. Of course, everybody's, getting geared for their new campaign. But this is the question, exactly the question the Supreme Court will have to determine, because there's no doubt, whatever comes now, whatever political scenario comes, whatever happens in the Knesset, in the parliament, that is, it's going to end up being decided by the Supreme Court. Someone will appeal from either side, and the Supreme Court will have to decide, this is a precedent that they'll have to set. Can a sitting prime minister also be one fighting actively, charges against him?
Where does this turmoil leave the country? I have to ask, who's running the country?
Well, officially, Netanyahu, his government, they're still in office. It's clear there's great stagnation. We talk about budget, when you talk about the need for social services. Everybody's realizing this is not an ideal situation. The last round in Gaza last week have shown us that things are very shaky. This is partially why the hope and the expectation of Netanyahu to step down is something that is unrealistic. He is not. He feels he uses this instability as a proof of why he needs to stay and keep his hold tight over the government, even though it's not as tight as he wishes it was.
That could expand even his base, as you mentioned. Shani Razanis, thanks so much for coming in, Shani.
Pleasure.